Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. And you may be noticing that my venue is a little different. That is because I have now a space that I can do reactions and analysis at home, not just at work. So I'm very excited about it because that means that I'm able to healthily schedule out reactions in a more timely manner, as well as not spend so much time on resources and gas and everything commuting to and fro just to get these out. So I'm very excited about it, and yeah, so that's why. So you may be seeing this a little bit more, and I hope it keeps with the vibe, I guess. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at it is 17's newest comeback, God of Music. This is the first time I'm going to be taking a look at 17 as a group. I've seen some excerpts of their work. I know a couple of them from variety shows, but I have not seen, analyzed, sat down, looked at anything in regards to 17. So I think it's going to be really fun. Let's go ahead and check it out. You look really relaxed here. Cute. Ooh, I like that turn. Wow. Love the energy. Ooh, they have some really nice details that create breathers within the piece, but it's so captivating. Their intricacies and their simplicity, very clean, so it makes both options very enjoyable to watch. Love the fact that all of them are moving when the tone is more unified with multiple voices. They have everybody, and I really like that. That was really cool. Cute. That was really cool. His kick initiated the group to go around. I love that. Looks like they're having a lot of fun with this. Great job on the choreographers for the formations and the choreography. Very entertaining, matches the song so well. Oh, that was cute. Very clean. This is a lot of fun. Definitely more on the intermediate side in comparison to what I was expecting from them, because I've heard so many people. That was nice. So many people say that they're definitely one of the groups that are known for their choreography. So that was very nice, guys. I liked that a lot. So I decided to move my little icon just so we can really see the full picture, so I'm not super in the way, at least like reactionary to what we're analyzing. So just going from the very top here, I really like the energy. It feels very enjoyable to watch, you know. Like I've already mentioned, more on the intermediate side when it comes to the style presented. I felt like there was a little bit of old school to new school content collaboration, and I feel like you naturally get that nowadays with a lot of K-pop groups, or the fourth generation, third generation, that are very, very active. The choreographers kind of dive within both, because the foundation and the fundamentals are starting to be something that a lot of people want to recognize and continue to explore, but the newer side of trends and those types of things can really relate to a lot of people who enjoy dance in that realm as well. So I feel like a lot of choreographers bridge those two, and I saw a couple moments here where we got to see a little bit of locking influence versus a little house influence, maybe a tad, not quite light feet. I think I noticed it just a smidgen here, but nothing enough to really justifying the style. But this is more of a funk track. But really looking here from the top, they're having more freedom of how they're choosing to go about it. Of course, you have your feature, and I only know a couple of them, but not really the whole group. So feel free to really just go in the comments to help me understand who this group is, and just each member in their role if they have that. But going from the top with our first feature, he's really one of the only ones who's really presenting front, projecting vocally is what you've noticed here. Everybody else is kind of vibing out, but he's projecting his face forward for the majority of it, hence why you naturally want to look at him as a feature. Everybody else is kind of having that creative freedom, making sure they're at the right place at the right time, of course, but nothing super crazy, you know, bleeding through the phrases. And they go, hey, ho. So it just feels very fun, and I do enjoy that about this. And notice when they go, hey, ho, like the energy is building ever so slightly in comparison to what we saw earlier, which was just a little bit more freedom. But then there you even ended up seeing 3 independent separate groups take place, where you have three of them. Oh, that was a polyrhythmic grouping. So if you take a note here, we're going to look at each group. So we have one that's hitting the ho, and then you have the brr, 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 and then you have another group just vibing out on the sides. You have about a group of 3 over here, a group of 4. They're hitting that brr, brr, brr. So more of that, the horns, right? I don't have like a mouse right now. I have like a pad thing here, so it's a little bit tricky to draw better here. And then you have this group just kind of vibing out, and they're doing more, more hitting on that bass. So if you just look here, it's super fun. Oh! So you've kind of already seen this. Yeah, so each group decided to hit that ba 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 a little different, and I like that, and that's why it still feels cohesive, even though they're all doing something different. It's because they're all the groupings are hitting that same part of the music. Great choice. And they went da 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 da. So they did a kick step touch to hit that da 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 in the back, and then hear that knock. So they're hitting the bass using the knock. And I just love that, and you can still see the framing of your feature because he's the only one that is not knocking. So, and that's something that I'm going to be honest, I really liked about this routine, is that their transitions into their features is really seamless. I'd say there's only a couple times where I noticed that maybe the feature is not quite approaching it in a seamless way, or maybe it's a typical predictable way that you would expect a feature to be shown in a track or a K-pop group. So it's really cool to see here that, we're able to see these transitions of the different features, and it makes you question, how do they do that? And that's what you want sometimes. Here, I love this coupe turn situation that they did. So if you look, they had to turn on the ball of the foot, slightly lifting off of the heel, but they had to kind of drag this top foot. They probably either the side or the top of the foot in order to get it to create that illusion around and maintain that the position as they do their rotation. It's really nice, and I believe it looks like they did it with their knock, and I think that's kind of fun, honestly. So it's honestly really impressive that they're able to do the turn without making it look super forced, because sometimes people think that your arms are what's going to get you around, but that's not quite the case. It's your core and how you push off and how you rotate with your feet. So I really like the fact that they kind of low-key have really good technique here, because that they're not really relying upon their arms to get their rotation around, and they're relying upon other means that are more appropriate. Now this section right here was really nice. It broke up into even segments, and I do want to take a note. I do mention this pretty often. Whenever you have a group that operates with an even number, it is trickier to create symmetrical formations when you have a single feature. It works when you have two people featured at the same time, obviously, because you can do in symmetry, but whenever you have a single person, sometimes you end up having to sacrifice, like what we're seeing here, one person that is directly behind your feature or something of that nature in order to maintain the symmetry on both sides. So that's something that, I mean, I feel like the only people that would be upset are if that individual was stuck behind the feature the whole time, which is not really the case in these, or it's your bias and you always want to see them at all times. So that would kind of be the only type of people that maybe not prefer this type of method. But because they're only doing that for maybe an 8 count or 2, I don't see quite the harm in it as much. And if it's clean and you don't see them, that means they must be doing something right? And I really like how they just chose to branch off. It was very clean, very clear what groups we have. We have 3 very distinct groups. We have one that has our feature in it for that moment. And then the reason why it was easy to see everybody is not everybody was going the same way. We had a group that's going forward, we had a group that was going diagonal, and the other one going the other way. So it was really nice to see that directionally their depth also reflected that, not just the position and their angles. So a super great start from them. And it is fun to just kind of see them go up, hold, and then melt away. Not quite a basket run. I don't think I noticed the basket run in this routine, and that to me gets a check from me. I'm always a fan of not seeing basket runs with big groups because I feel like there's so many other creative ways to transition that I don't get to see as often as I'd wish, because we do end up seeing basket runs because they're clean and they're simple, but that's the same reason why I would want us to try to find more innovation with it. So that's my mini rant with basket runs. I didn't see that here, which it makes me enjoy this pretty much. I love that. Now we have, this is an example of very seamless transition into our second feature, or possibly our third, where we have, I believe this is Hoshi. Is that, it looks like DK. I think it was DK and Hoshi, and I think Vernon. I think those are the 3 that I know of 17. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know Vernon comes up. He's on Gene. Now I know Hoshi's known as a dancer of the group. DK is known as a vocalist. And Vernon, I don't know what his role is. I just recognize him from reels that have shown up in my life. But it is really nice. You can see the energy that Hoshi brings here. His air time is pretty impressive when he jumps. That right there, the tucking of the legs, it really shows like he didn't insinuate any higher than the other people framing him, but his legs were significantly closer to his body, so his jump was higher, but it didn't take away from what he was doing. So honestly, I'd be very impressed if he could perform this section live. But I really love that moment that happened, that pause, melt over. If you just notice, what made that look like a firework of formation is you had your back people lining and framing what was happening in the center with my group of 5, but they expanded with their hands outward, so it created multiple levels that can interact and create an accent moment without having to do content to accent. They did just something simpler, and I think that's something that I'm really enjoying about this, is that they're not killing it in content, if that makes sense, when it comes to content density. There's not as much complexity to their movement as much, and I really like that because I feel like the song doesn't really call for that. It can in the horns, especially in the dance breaks, you can call for that, but you know, if you're singing this live and you want it to be more boy crush enjoyable and not going for that super sexy approach, I really think this is fun and you can do a lot with it. It's writing similar to how Aju Nice feels, but that one I feel it's a little bit more intricate in timbre or in sound context in here. Here is very funk, and with funk, the pocket is not overly complex, right? I think it's more of a social pocket that you explore, and more so social is fun, intermediate, beginner friendly, you know, and I think that's why I just like the overall essence of this. Doing the new school, so it's an old school kind of funk influence, but just notice that they add new school twang. That's how I would word it. You had a sneeze kind of happen as a transition, which is more of a new school type of thing to do. And I just like it because it feels like everybody, there's not really anybody that sticks out in they're lacking in their technical execution in comparison to other people. Now I know that Hoshi is a dancer because I've just seen him on the dance reels more than other members because I'm not very familiar with 17, but he's not sticking out in the way of, oh, that's your dancer. I know that already, so there's going to be a natural biasness of seeing that, and I know that this is Vernon here with Gene on. I'm very impressed at the ability to do Gene on Gene. And I'm honestly very impressed with the fact that they have so many creative formations operating with an even number, but I think it helps because they have so many people. I really love that they're always choosing to frame diagonally instead of just making it a flat, straight line. Like they have moments of that, but they really are intentional about framing their features well. Having a little small group to help bring the feature a little bit more presence, I think, which is what I like. Now this section is a little bit more complex, a little bit more on the wordplay, more intricate in the upper body, but notice that there's tension and stability in the lower body that's really helping in this. That was a really awesome moment where you had Vernon come up, kind of swivel his hand up, but it also, because of the legato-ness of the swivel, very smooth in the transition from point A to point B, it allowed the turn to also receive that way. And that's why those two things complement each other, even though they're not necessarily the same thing. And you can also factor in that because it has kind of a rotational element to this moment, that's why a turn feels complementary to it as well, because it looks like he's controlling it with his hand. And everybody else also helps with their aid of the hand to kind of bridge the gap between those two things. So it's little things that I'm noticing about this that makes me really understand the fluency of how this group operates together. I know they've been around for a long time, and I can just see that right there, just having that little moment, like a Charleston influenced moment that feels more old school, Michael Jackson, James Brown. It has that vibe about it, you know, but they're taking a new school approach to it. And that's why I think I'm vibing with this pretty well. I love this explosion moment where they separated into three, or maybe it was just two, probably two, where you had one side, the other side, and then my middle initiates the body roll. So here. So if you notice here too, they kind of did a broken down wave. And if you don't know, I'm a waver. So that's the style that I choose to study the most out of all street styles for myself personally. So I really enjoy whenever I see that integrated here, because a lot of techniques that are just derived from waving is you have more of that legato, which you see often. I think there was another member who did it earlier. He just did a standard wave across, but they did broken down wave, isolating from the shoulders all the way down into the fingertips. And so that was a really nice transition that was sharp, but it still maintained the smoothness of what's going on. I love this, where you still have your framing of the corners, but now we have two people that are considered being featured, even though there's only one singer here. And then you have your two that are kind of hanging out, framing what's going on, making something happen over here. And it looks symmetrical because you have a two-person feature. And that's what I said about a little bit earlier. That was cool. Damn, that's life. It's just really nice. He had his moment to say his little excerpt. Super fun. And it was captivating because what he did with the arm, he kind of traced it and then made an accent out of it. So I really, really like this. That's so fun. Da 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 da. Boom. And then they reverse it. So they go forward, 2, 3, hold it back, 2, 3. But then your feature didn't join in until about halfway through whenever he hits that and I just guys, it's just so fun. I love moments like that. It's simple but effective, I think is the best way to word it. And we do end up seeing it again later, but seeing it here is just really nice. They do a body roll. We see a couple of these body rolls. We saw it earlier in Vernon's feature, but now we see it here in this feature. So there's like little moments that are kind of tailoring across that, like body rolls or a lot of the pull and the tension that we're seeing. And that's just what makes this feel really nice. Having moments for them to be themselves. So I call it structured freestyle or planned improv. So you have these moments where you're allowed to be free, right? And they do get to be free, but sometimes they're like, okay, party low until you get to 8 or until you get to your spot and then hold a position. So that's more like a guided freestyle where they're not necessarily told all of the specific content, but they are told the guidelines or maybe the formation or the timing that really helps aid them and refine what they can actually do in their time frame. So that's just a little tidbit there if you were curious about why the party moments still have structure to them. That's probably wise, because in my personal experience, that is how we would go about it is, okay, make sure you party, try to avoid going on the floor until this count because we have floor work coming up, this, that, or the other, whatever, right? I've been on both sides of it. So it's really nice to see it here because it's a very real world, practical way to kind of vibe out, but also not make it look like you just gave up a section. So I really very much like that. I love this too. He really focuses more on the vocals, and he just has really subtle footwork here, more like a Charleston influence, similar to what Vernon did, but just slightly different. I would say Vernon did more of a James Brown influence than what we saw here. I know Elvis also had some of these little nuances, but James Brown is kind of one of the most notable people you can when it comes to the funk genre. He's like the godfather on the music side, and just what he's done culturally is just really, really impactful and super captivating. And so it's really nice to see at least some similarities of that here. And that's another example of just having an accent moment. Everybody frames outward except for your feature, and that's how you know who to focus on. So they've done a really good job on the psychological side of how to frame their features to where they can do accent moves. It doesn't look like they're not doing anything, and they look like a surprise, like a firework of features, which is what we're seeing here, that explosion of moments or pictures, which is really nice. And it just shows that they've done a great job practicing. This footwork's really nice. Toe tap, so it just vibes out, super fun. Nice little simple turns, but because everybody is hitting the same range, and range is different than content cleanliness. So there's cleanliness in the actual technique, then there's cleanliness as a group when it goes to how you get from point A to point B. Are you all in the same timing in the transition, not just A and not just B? That's called range. And I think they've done a fabulous job, which goes back to, I understand they've been a group for a long time, so they've gotten used to how they've been exposed to similar fingerprints of movement for a long time with each other. And I know they have a renewed contract, so at least 7 years. I do know that. And you can just see that here. And I know they were known as more of a dance group early on, so just seeing that refined is really tasteful, and it's super enjoyable to watch in this way. I feel like I'm more taking a back seat and I'm admiring these moments versus being like, oh, they should have gone with a different choice. And I like being put in this position because I don't think there's really much that I would even suggest to change. I think this matches very well with their track. Now this chorus point choreo, it feels very much like everybody can do it, and that's kind of the vibe of the track anyway. It's more of a funk social type of track, and I think that's what they were going for. It feels like a more soulful version of Aju Nice is what it feels. And with this little bit right here, boom, doom, 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 and just having the pulls, it's nice. It's intricate in the upper body, but not quite overly intricate where it's not overly polyrhythmic in the intricacy. The intricacy is making sure you hit certain parts of the layers of your music, but you're not also tailoring that to any footwork. Your groove is the same, just it's more of an intermediate polyrhythm, and that's what I like about it, is that it is more obtainable. There's your Harlem Shake. This is another example. They went from a Harlem Shake, which is like a old school hip hop party move from Harlem, and then here into the Gangsta Walk from, I think his name is Zaya Z. It's just the letter Z. I know that guy. He invented the Gangsta Walk. So it's really cool to see like an old school and a new school move go literally back to back as they just integrated into a funk inspired track. So it's just fun. And that's another example too, where you have your feature and everybody else is moving. He's either marking it, modifying it. That's like a typical approach, but how he approached was everybody framed out or everybody frames in when the feature is present. They're the only one that is facing front. And I think I've already said it a couple times, but I really like that because it's not forcing me. It's forcing me without making me feel forced, and that's what makes it feel so light and airy and enjoyable. Now, I will be honest, I like this section, but I do notice they do this curtain type of transition. So they have these front groups and then they transition them out by separation to reveal a smaller group in the back. I've seen that a couple times already just in this track. I don't know if this is a fingerprint of the choreographers that they use typically. I don't know if they use the same choreographers over time, but it looks like who they used. It's a very familiar pocket or groove set that they're used to. So, and it looks like they like it. So I feel like there's some sense of relationship between what the choreographer is bringing intention wise and how 17 may feel like themselves as they do it too, and they're probably happy about the fact it's not advanced brutal choreography. It's more vibey, jam out, it's not overkill, and I think that's definitely something that they probably wanted. You know, even here, I think my only note is some of them are really invested in the torso and some of them are really just doing the arms and not quite hinging over in their rock whenever they are doing more of those sustains on the foot. That's my only note I think I've said so far, but it's so minor, minute, and you really can only tell when they do unison, but their levels and formations are so tasteful, it's really hard to catch that. And I think that's really working well with the toolkits that they've already provided for themselves. I love this. Boom, hit, da da da. And this is another fun way we have Vernon coming out again. But you notice how he was featured through, he was going against the current from everybody else. So he was still dancing, but everyone was here. And then here's little old Vernon going this way. And that's, you know, and that was a really nice way for us to focus on Vernon without it being like, here's Vernon. So it's fun, you know, and it doesn't ruin the vibe. Like it just feels like it's a really natural, seamless transition between your vocalists versus here's a magic show and here's a magic show and like making it a thing. They're making it a thing without making it a thing. And some of the footwork is really nice. Or they have these little pause moments where it's just cute. Like they're going with the cute boy concept, but cute boys with groove, kind of what it vibes with. And I like it. I'm a fan of it. Here it builds. The energy is nice. I love the kick there when they go kick and then he does the pull in on the opposite sides. Super fun. Yep, nice little camel walk. That's where it's reached James Brown. He was one of the ones who did the camel walk. Such a fan of the integration there. See, this is really cute. I know I've been seeing this so much. This is like the face heart. Kind of reminds me of fish gills in like a really cute way. But I like the fact that with our feature here, he's kind of standing on the side, but you're still able to see your 3 columns, and your 3 columns were stacked up in groups of 4, right? So you had pig pose, 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 and it was just really cute. And I don't know, I think like you just have a lot of these bleed out moments, but you notice that they're always thinking about bleeding out outward or inward. They're never just bleeding out stagnantly. It's really nice because they're just really following what the eye needs and the digestibility of a track. Like they're really investing in their levels 100% of the way, not just 25. So that's a huge kudos if they are choosing. Another example is that they chose to jump instead of just pop up. They jumped and then they're spread back out. And this was a really fun way for them to do the head. So same head that we saw earlier, but different is your feature is different, obviously. And then your second difference is your feature is now using the finger, doing the head with them. So instead of coming in when he wants to, he's doing it. And then he uses the other hand to create that resistance or that puppeting effect that really looks like he's controlling everyone, but just in a different way. There's your body rolls with the steps. I like that when they're going, dashi, like they're just yelling it out because it just feels like they're just having fun, and I like that. And I think too with that where he pulls, it's the groups reacted to him as he did that, so it felt collaborative between your feature and everybody else who's not featured, and that's what you want when you have a group represented, not just a soloist. I love it whenever everybody is equally represented on stage, regardless if their role as a singer is not necessarily the top priority in comparison to other people's roles within the group. So I think this is just really fun. Love how they all drag out, have a head to inspire, like to be influenced, and then they used a drag with the head to roll it down as you had somebody featured in the front. So it's just they're framing even in the nuances, not just in the movement, but in how they're holding their posture is also framing. I love that. And now here, I feel like this is that's another example of you know, that curtain-y kind of transition where you have your small group popping off. I love it. It's great. I like that they went with a smaller group there, and you notice how he kicked. So he kicked and they ended up turning. That was really cool, super fun. I'm actually going to go back and we're going to take a look at that again. It's just super tasteful here. Dun, dun, dun. He kicks right here. Boom. He kicks and causes a rotation. So his kick looks like a trigger point for them to rotate. And I love moments like that because it's, like I've already said, simple yet effective. And you can tell that they do well with the simple and they do well with the complex, which makes the simpler more captivating because we've seen them pop off in the complex sections here. And that's something some groups may or may not have, or maybe they approach something overly simplistic and they're not as clean with the simple. So we make natural assumptions of maybe their complexity is not quite up to snuff. But if you see clean complexity, you assume sometimes that their simplisticness this is going to be, you know, captivating. But honestly, you have to prove it in every track that you do, whether or not you guys are investing 100% in all aspects, not just in the aspects that are quote unquote entertaining, right? I mean, this is solely entertaining, not because of content, but because of vibe and essence more so. And that's, I think, what I love, because the choreography is just icing on the cake to that, because we're repeating the choreo, but they're making different formation changes, different visuals. Now, this is what made me think this was more of a locking influence. Sometimes they did like taps onto their feet. Oh, what's the word for it? I can't, top of my head. It's been a hot minute since I've like actively studied locking and the beginner, intermediate, and advanced variations and what they're called. So forgive me for my lack of impromptu vocab replication. But whenever they do not snaps, like sometimes they snap off the feet, like instead of just snapping to the side, they can tap the feet as they do it. So there's a term for it, so if you know, please let me know. But they do little things like that, or they do, you know, how they hold up like a Tom and Jerry-esque vibe and presence into a wrist roll, into a muscle man variation of some kind. It's not a true posture of locking, but because locking is a funk style, it's hard to not disassociate from that. You know, I wouldn't call this whacking, because whacking is a different pocket or different way of how you hold yourself. It has a more feminine posture. Here, they're taking a more neutral funk groove posture, which is why I'm resonating it more on the locking side. And with James Brown and other funk inspirations, it feels like that kind of a meshment, which honestly, at the end of the day, I like. It's fun. It's just fun. Even in the group, sometimes I would always be like, oh, they need to go bigger here. But, you know, honestly, I don't think they need to go bigger there, because they have so many people. Everybody doing it the same way is just as effective as one person doing it super big, right? And you don't want, if you have everybody operating and doing the same groove, you don't want somebody to overshadow somebody else unless they are a feature. But here, they're not. And so that's why it looks so nice. And their unison is definitely very impressive that I'm noticing here. Right there, they're going here. They did like a little shoot transition. So sometimes they do a sneeze transition, sometimes a gangsta walk transition, and sometimes they do a shoot transition. Those are like little viral new school aesthetics into this funk genre, and that's why it feels like such a bridge, and it makes me appreciate it a lot, because it feels like it's crossing over multiple generations, just like this group is a Gen 3 operating in a Gen 5 world, you know. So I'm really much a fan of it. That was fun. I love that. I know that's probably a wordplay there with the lyrics, and I love that there was stillness and having one person featured, and then everybody started and resumed. That was super fun. That was also fun too, wording straight on the words, holding suspension and tension, where they're hitting that bass, hitting the suspension. I really very much love that. And I just started noticing they have these little stars to cover up stomachs as their shirts come up. So I think that's really, that's super fun. Even looking here, I think it's okay that he overvaried it. Here, this whole groove right here, he added a lot of the upper body, a lot more than the others did. But because he was a feature just recently, that's an example of, I think that's okay if he went a little bit different, because we just saw him doing something different before, and he's still technically the feature until moved elsewhere. So that's a really good example of what I just talked about. And now that we have everybody, they're kind of there. And this was such a cute moment. They all look, they're like, thank goodness we have such a chill, let me look at him. He's like, we have a chill routine this time. This is wonderful. It's a party, you know, and they all look happy. I know that's DK, right? And then I think, who else? Somebody else looks familiar. That's Hoshi and Vernon. And this guy looks familiar. I've seen him before in something. Anyway, I've seen a couple like variety stuff, so I've seen them before, but those are the ones that like I know the face of the name. Anyway, but it's just fun, and I see that you can see them look down, so I think that was a super fun cut. I will say this, normally I prefer with the dance practices to be a one take, because you're really able to see and be more impressed by the dynamics, the levels, all of those things when it's all operating in a one take. But I think this was a really tasteful and strategically fun way to get multiple takes in their set. I'm assuming that they're operating, there's a good chance that maybe that there was a mistake here or what, or maybe they intentionally did a one take and then they just chopped that little bit in there for fun. That would have been best case scenario that I wish would happen. But once again, I'm not in charge of these, and that's just an ideal world that we're not living in. An ideal world, you know, some people are gonna have to have cuts for whatever reasons. But anyway, I very much like the choice here, and it was strategic in their energy because they demonstrated great energy prior to that. It doesn't bother me as much going into the cut because it doesn't feel like they were too tired and we had to take 2 cuts for stamina's sake. I think that's why. Now looking here, I love that they had 2 different dancer moments. You had one and then they had everybody do a very quick ripple or cannon down, and then they all melted in to frame your second dancer, and I think that was really fun. We are seeing that Charleston, James Brown vibe a lot here, which is just, it's just traveling on through their concept through the whole track, and I just think it's really fun. A little bum bum. Love that. There's your chorus again. But what's different is they treated it like a dance break or integrated it into the dance break, and I think that's really fun. And how they get everybody to finish out and then all come into the corner, I think is really, really interesting. And then you have one of your dancers, he just grabbed his arm and he had a little moment himself, and then all of them are now continuing to transition. Now, with that move right there, I'm not used to seeing it as a travel step. Normally, I'm used to seeing people hit it stationary, and then I see them move. And so I really like that that was just an interesting choreographic choice, that was a transition step, but it matches the music great there. So I'm glad they did it, but it's just really hard to get everybody on the same page. But because of everything I've said, it doesn't surprise me that they're on the same page there. It's just tasteful. Now here's another party moment. But they said, go, go. And you notice that just our feature is the only one who did not respond the way that everybody else did. Everybody else did dun, dun, da, 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 boom, boom. Like they had this reverbed vibe that happened out of response to what he was saying. And that's what created a subtle feature of, that's who's singing right now. You shouldn't just rely upon somebody's mouth opening to know who your feature is. That was a really smart strategic way to feature someone without drawing a ton of attention to him, but still making him a feature. And it's just fun. That right there, everybody choosing to throw their hand up, hit the higher sound, boom, not boom. It just made a lot of sense for them to go boom, recognizing the sound without doing too much energy-wise. It's just very smart. Now here, as some people are choosing to roll and some are choosing just to do more of those chicken wing vibes. Both I think look fine because they've approached a party aesthetic. They're allowing that grace for the upper body because their groove is the same. Their upper body has a little bit more freedom and it's not sacrificing the overall cleanliness of the routine. So that's just a lot of factors that I feel that when you work with a group this long, you're gonna get those instances more. That slide back. Now here's what I was talking about with the snaps, where they're hitting that boom, boom, over. It's just really fun to see that here, where they just have a lot of this type of groove with the pullback. And I think that's why I've said what I've already said already. That was a really nice moment, super fun dance break, but not overly complicated. They did a couple little house steps with a little heel dig, toe tap variations there. It was super fun. And it feels like one of these, but in like a really good way. There's another little of the stomach. It was funny. Finish in a straight line. I do think it's interesting. I do want to note this near the tail end here. I think it's a boom, 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 boom. So they hit that bum, ba-da, but they did a single group and then they did 2 groups on the outside. The 2 groups didn't start until the first group had turned. The other 2 groups stepped forward, then they turned when the first group stopped, creating that two-step moment to hit the 3 counts. I love it when they do that, and just whenever groups do that in general. It just feels it's risky. It's slightly risky when you deal with the more people that do that. The trickier it is when you work on micro counts and having they all finished. But then you hear them. That was in 0.75 of instability, right? But it also shows their just total investment as a group and in their track. And it made me very excited to just take a look at it in this lens. This was awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I was helpful in some way. Once again, this was my first look at 17 in this way as an analysis and feedback. And I really cannot wait to watch them again. I have a feeling they're going to be showing up a lot more. on Jess Reacts on this channel, because if this was more of like an intermediate taste, I cannot wait to see what more complex versions of this group has to offer. And I know you guys, please let me know if there's any particular track where their choreography is notable for their kind of catalog as being the core choreo for this group. I'd love to see it and take a look at it. Once again, I'm Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye, guys.